Let's go. Welcome to RustShip. RustShip is the podcast for developers who ship Rust code. I'm your host, Marco Iani. I'm a Rust developer and I enjoy talking to other people, especially other developers, and especially about Rust. So here we are. This is RustShip episode number 7. And today we have Ernest Kissiedu with us. Hi, Ernest.
Hi, Marco. Well done on getting my surname right. You did a lot better than I did with your surname. So congratulations.
Yeah, a lot of people misspell my surname.
Yes,
They
I
think
did that.
it's normal. Like a lot of people,
Yeah.
I have like all sorts of gadgets with my surname spelled Lenny instead of Yanni.
Oh man,
No, bro,
apologies.
no
Yeah,
worries.
yeah.
Yes,
But you did very well with my name, so thank you very much.
doing my best. Yes, yeah. I misspelled many guests. I can tell you for sure. So Ernest is the Rust Nation curator and Rust London community lead. So I met Ernest at Eurorust 2023, and like the first thing he said to me was, "Hey Marco, I have a good news for you. We accepted your talk for Rust Nation." So it was really happy
Yeah,
discussion.
very
Yes.
glad to share that. Yeah, yeah, because your talk submission previously was so good, and you caused me a lot of agony. Because when we were looking at the talks for the inaugural Rust Nation, you submitted a talk and it was so good, but I had it weighed up against another talk which was really similar. And when we were discussing that, it was like, oh, I really wish I could have both of these in. And I felt really bad I had to break the news to you that yours missed out on that one. But I was even more happy that I was able to break the news to you that this time round for Rust Nation 2024, your talk was definitely going to be there. So, yeah, agony, but also I was very joyous that the first time I saw you in person, I was able to give you good news, basically.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you for that. Yes. And yes, like no worries for the previous edition. I think you are in a really difficult spot about like selecting talks. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to definitely give tips to people who want to submit their talks on how to send the best submissions that they can. And yes, so we're going to talk about Rust Nation, of course. I will ask Ernest what is Rust Nation, what to expect from it, some lessons that he learned from the past edition, and also organizing this one. And I also want to talk about Rust London, which is one of the biggest Rust communities in the world. I'm sure that you have many tips for people who want to start their Rust community, maybe. So yeah, let's start from Rust Nation. What is Rust Nation and what should we expect from it?
So, Rust Nation is a conference experience for people who are building things in the Rust programming language. So, I think I can give a little bit of historical context and take a step back. It involves, just how Rust Nation came about. Coming into, what we can describe as a post-pandemic world, a lot of people were eager to get back into in-person events. And also at the time, for the ecosystem at large, it felt like this was the moment for there to be a really big gathering of Rustaceans and people who are building things and people who want to share their stories, share their war stories on how they have gone through the process of building things. There is a enterprise tilt in who our conference serves. So we distinguish ourselves by being very much a conventional conference per se, compared to some of the other Rust focused conferences in the ecosystem. You can describe RustConf, for example, as the UN of Rust conferences, in the sense of it acts as the symposium where everybody from the ecosystem gets together. That's the only reason why I'm using that particular analogy. You also have other conferences like Eurorust, but we focused and we have a very clear agenda that we want to be the conference where people, both in enterprise and individually, have a platform to share the process of what they're building in the Rust language, as well as other types of learnings as well. I like to have a tilt and a skew towards the process. How did you come about building that framework? How did you go through the process of building that application? What led you, and what challenges and what processes did you go through to build what you built in Rust? That's who Rust Nation serves as a conference, and that's where we're trying to give people the opportunity mostly. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying like maybe it's not the best conference to talk about the, I don't know, latest design of async trades and stuff like that,
Right.
but
Yeah.
maybe to
Yeah.
showcase what you build with Rust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the primary focus. We do serve the whole spectrum of Rust talks, and we are a platform that is inclusive and open to any kind of talk. So we do have, talks that delve deep into the type system. We do have talks that delve deep into the features and the new features of the language, but we will always have a tilt and a focus on building. This is a users conference, and this is a conference for individuals who are really looking to utilize the language in a way that showcases the power of the language.
Great. Great to hear that. I definitely enjoy hearing war stories, as you said, yes. And would you say that is this conference like what's the target of the conference? Maybe beginners, expert, or both?
So, as I said, this is an inclusive conference, so we welcome everyone of all levels. We
Great.
welcome everybody at whatever stage they are as a Rustation. With there being the specific tilts that I mentioned, you will find that there will be more of a certain type of Rustation there. So if you're showcasing what you've built, it can still be, a to-do app or anything else like that. But with our enterprise focus and tilt, you will find that there will be more people who have had a longer period of time with the language, maybe people who are a bit more experienced in the language, to have gone through certain processes and gone through certain difficulties and trials to be able to share what they have. But we will always welcome everyone. Again, if you have a compelling enough story for your to-do app that you've built in Rust, then you're still welcome to present at Rust Nation. So yeah, we welcome everyone, essentially. We're very focused on being inclusive, but bring a story and bring learnings for others who want to build with the language. So that's what we always focus on.
Great, great. And I see that you have 4 tracks for the talks.
5, technically. Technically, we have 5.
Oh, okay. I only see.
Yeah. So if you include the hackathon that we're doing, that's technically 5 tracks.
Tell me more about the hackathon then.
Wow. So we are really excited to have the hackathon this year. That's one of the crown jewels of the conference experience. We are working with Helsing.ai, who are an amazing team. You may know that John Genset, the author of Rust for Rustations, is the principal engineer there. And they are an amazing team doing some really incredible things, both in areas of AI and embedded. And we're working with them to put on an in-conference hackathon that gives you the opportunity to get hands-on with manipulating and controlling drones and RC cars with through Rust code. So you'll be able to hack and put together some of the challenges that they have devised that will allow you to control an RC drone, a card drone and an RC car with a camera on the day during the conference. And it's a very, very exciting thing that we've been able to pull off. And I'm really, again, very grateful to the Helsing team for all the work that they've put in. It's going to be an incredible feature for people who want to get hands-on with the language, especially areas of the language that are really important for Rust in general. The Aero Rust community, headed by Lachazar Lechev, who's also going to be one of our speakers, are doing some incredible things with embedded devices and also in the safety critical area as well. So being able to actually get hands-on with that, with the Helsing team through the hackathon, I feel like it's going to be one of the things that I'm most excited about for the conference. I can't wait to see the drones flying around in the room and the cars moving around. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Definitely sounds very fun. Yes. And I see that there are 3 talks for each
Yes,
slot and 1
yes,
tutorial. Like, what's the
yes.
difference between talks and tutorials?
So tutorials are, again, an opportunity to get hands-on with the language. They contrast the talks in a way where you're not necessarily passively listening to someone give a presentation. You're actually going through and actually having an opportunity to actively work with the speaker as they demonstrate something to you. So 2 examples that I can give, the Shuttle team. I'm not sure if you've heard of Shuttle. They are a framework that everybody's raving about. Well, they're actually a framework as a service almost, because they allow you to derive backends very quickly through the way that their framework works. And you'll be able to work with Peter to spin up a microservices app on the day. I think that's his talk. I can't remember it off the top of my head now, but that's a tutorial that you'll be able to work on. There's also the Crux framework as well, which has been created by Red Badger. They are a team that are building out a framework that allows you to build cross-platform apps. You have a core that's built, so your core business logic is built in Rust, and you're able to basically attach whatever sort of front end that you like. And they are going to give you a hands-on primer on how to basically do that. There's also a Ferrocene primer as well, so you'll be able to get hands-on with the Ferrocene toolchain. There's lots of tutorials. So tutorials contrast to talks in the way that they are not passive. You're not just listening to a talk. You're actually getting active and hands-on as well. I'm very big on that. That's a very big part thing, a very important thing for me personally.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. Like, the offering is impressive, absolutely. And yeah, like the like there are many good talks. Also, the keynotes are like very solid.
Thank
And
you.
like, I won't name my favorites but for example, there is
Go ahead. No worries, please.
I, like, for sure I will name the talk of Ellie, which because
Yeah,
she's been on the episode 3 of the podcast, and she will talk
amazing.
about the syncing
Yeah.
mechanism of Adwin, which she also
Mm,
mentioned here at the podcast. So definitely looking
yeah.
forward to that. Yes. Yeah, cool. And also there are going to be workshops on the first day, right?
Yes, yes. Again, we've been incredibly privileged to work with some of the most prominent trainers in the Rust ecosystem, to offer a full day, again, of hands-on training for people who are wanting to level up themselves as Rust developers, whether you're coming from a company and they've sent you to come down and get yourself primed, to be able to, work on a POC back at wherever you're working, or just for yourself as an individual, if you want to level up your understanding and your skill, you are in the right place with the workshops. We have 3 trainers that you probably are very well aware of. Luca, I mean, I don't really have to say much more about Luca, the rock star. Luca from Main Matter, there, he is going to be doing a workshop on testing, which is an area that people are very interested in. It's like kind of seen as a bit of a dark art, and there's probably no better person to learn from than Luca Palmieri. Then we also have the Arden Labs team, who are going to be taking our intermediate track. We focused on having 3 tracks that were very poignant and very focused on people's current and trending need. One of the learnings that we took from the first inaugural conference was that having a beginner's workshop track wasn't necessarily beneficial to everyone, because a lot of people gave us feedback that there are so many beginner resources out there, and as Rustaceans was sport for choice. You have Rustlings, you have Rust by Example, you have Exorcism, you have so many different beginner tools and resources for free, that having a beginner workshop that's paid for wasn't necessarily beneficial for people. So we took that on board, and we focused on having workshops that benefit people where they are, which is why we have an intermediate, we have a quote unquote expert track, whatever that means in the world of Rust, right? Who really ever does consider themselves an expert, unless you're like a John Genset or a Luca or something like that. Then we also have a Rust in Enterprise workshop, which I'm very, very excited about. We partnered with Tim McNamara, the author of Rust in Action, to have a workshop that gives people the understanding, and it primes them to really know the different elements and facets of doing Rust in production. We're at a very interesting phase in the Rust ecosystem, where we're moving out of hobbyist mode. We're moving out of a mode where people are doing projects for themselves and just because the language is really cool, to where there are certain expectations, where there are certain demands, and where there are specific criteria that need to be met. And Rust in production and Rust for enterprise is a very different thing to doing Rust in your own time, right? Or Rust as a hobbyist. So understanding the tooling, understanding some of the ways and means and processes and hacks that you could learn to be really effective, and to actually really sell Rust through production is something that we want to offer the community through Tim's workshop. So Tim's workshop is broken up in 3 parts, and it gives you a flavor of different parts of how to work with Rust in production, whether you're actually creating a POC to prove that Rust is something that your organization should use, or whether you're moving beyond that and you're building something that you want to be out there in the world in a real and meaningful way. Tim's workshop is really, really exciting, and it's great for that as well. So those are our 3 workshop tracks.
Great. And so you mentioned that uh, you learned that like a beginner workshop wasn't really needed. Are there other
Mm.
lessons that you learned from the previous edition that you
Oh yeah,
corrected in this one?
yeah, a lot, a lot. Doing something like this, it really gives you a sense of where we are in general, in terms of Rust as a thing, Rust as a proposition. You get to see how the ecosystem is growing. You get to see where we are, because people come in person, and Reddit is great, Discord is great, Twitter X is great, but actually being around people, networking, and actually seeing how the ecosystem is evolving in real time from real people, I feel like you get invaluable insights from that. From an organizational point of view, it we learned that there is a huge demand for the language. There is a lot of goodwill towards the language, and the ecosystem, but there are things that still need to be done, and there are holes and gaps that still need to be filled for us to be a fully formed option that can be on the same scale and stratosphere as a Python or C Sharp or Kotlin. And there are many facets to why an organization chooses a technology or a language. And it's not just the language being cool or being great in and of itself. There are a lot of other in between messy factors that also come to play as well. And I feel like one of the lessons that you learn is you see how those uh, gaps are being filled in real time. And it fills you with a sense of optimism. It fills you with a sense of expectation. When you're in the Rust bubble, when you're so entrenched in the ecosystem, you would already feel like, yeah, of course, Rust is a no-brainer. It's going to be whatever, right? But you also have to understand that there are still people who are just discovering the language. And that's one of the things that really surprised me about our inaugural conference was the amount of companies that came out of the woodwork that have been tinkering with Rust really blew me away. We had so many representatives from so many different companies who I didn't even know were interested in Rust or looking at Rust in so many different sectors that we had to really, when we crunched the data and we looked at our attendee data, it was like, wow, this is amazing. I met people from Continental Tires, but Continental, the automotive company, I didn't know that they were using Rust. I think we had people from Audi there, AstraZeneca, so many different areas and different domains and industries that are tinkering with Rust and really taking it seriously, or looking at it to take it seriously. It really did open my eyes to the potential. And that comes back to my original point about, we can say that, are we there yet? Are we this yet? Are we that yet? We've got all of these websites.
Yeah.
Are we async yet and everything else? Each conference and each time that we do things like this, it gives us the understanding of how closer we are to those points.
I see. And in your opinion, what are the main gaps that these companies are missing from Rust?
So, yeah, this is a very interesting point. And this also actually leans into some other things that I've been helping the Rust Foundation with. So I'm excited to say that I have been helping the Rust Foundation uh, by being their person on the ground and connecting with companies, also helping them understand a lot of what is going on the ground, so that the right resources and the right help can be given into the right areas. I'm also helping them focus on being more open and inclusive to the global Rust community by me helping a lot of new fledgling communities get themselves up off the ground. So that's through their Rust Global initiative, which I'm really excited to talk more about later. But a lot of communities that are not based in Europe or North America, I am helping them through the foundation come up to speed. So you're going to see a lot more from global communities like Rust India, Rust Nigeria, Rust Latam, Rust Asia, because Rust is a global language and there should be global representation. And I'm very grateful to the foundation in recognizing that and allowing me, empowering me to help those communities. To answer your question, it's really important that we realize that, yes, we may feel that Rust is a sure thing, but a lot of people are still looking at having Rust have a solidified foundation. And by one example of that is people still want to know which crates should I use, which crates are the blessed crates. And there is a website called blessed.rs, which gives you that. But what we tend to find is a lot of people are, they're spoiled for choice with the number of crates out there. And because of the growing and fluid nature of the language, one day Dioxys is the front end framework, and then Leptos comes in, and then there's this, and then there's that. So you don't really know where to go if you just want a stable choice. You don't know what is the go-to. In other ecosystems, that's already pretty much established. You just know you're gonna choose pandas for what you need that for. You know that you're gonna choose React if you're in the JavaScript framework world. And Rust is still growing and Rust is still solidifying that. The cement isn't quite dry yet, but that's a good thing because we're still seeing a lot of that emerging. Some people want that assurity now for them to be able to go to their senior and say, look, let's use Rust because we are sure that this and this and this is the stable thing to use. Sometimes there's been mentioned that the versioning system in Rust doesn't quite allow for that approach. But that's actually by design. The conservative nature of Rust's versioning system is a feature and not a bug. But translating that message to people who are just coming into the community and don't have that context is something I feel that's really important. The way Rust does things to keep you safe isn't always necessarily clear to people who are just entering into the community and the ecosystem.
What do you mean by Rust versioning system? Like you mean that?
So a lot of,
yeah.
So a lot of the reasons why we go to like 0.76 things like that. A lot of people are like, well, like, is this ready? Like, is this what, like, and we've seen a few crates go to 1.0, but 1.0 isn't really a thing in the Rust ecosystem, right? But someone coming into the Rust ecosystem who wants to sell Rust to their quote unquote next level high up, they'll be like, well, there are no stable crates.
I agree that maybe with new to the Rust ecosystem, since they see the version that is like 0.xy, they think, okay, this is not production ready. Maybe there are bugs and stuff like that. Instead, what the Rust community wants to say with that is, hey, if there is a 0 as the measure number, it means that I might break the API. So that maybe I will change the number of parameters of a function, stuff like that. But actually, I think it's the contrary. Like there are a lot of articles, and also from my experience, I can see that the level of quality of the Rust library is probably unmatched with others other programming languages, because
Yes.
there is the Rust compiler that ensures that there is a minimum level of quality. And so like by just by using Rust libraries, you know that there are no memory issues and all
Right.
the good stuff that
Right.
we know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think again, it's more so of a marketing uh, issue rather than a structural issue. I think another key marketing or quote unquote marketing issue is really helping people understand that Rust is a general purpose language. Rust is not a systems language. Rust is a general purpose language. And I think we are getting better at that. I think there are efforts being made across the board to ensure that people understand and know that entering into this community, Rust is a general purpose language. You can use it for anything. Anything that you want to build, you can use Rust for. And the more that we see that, the more that we have conferences and things like that, of that nature, the more people will understand that as a core message that Rust is a general purpose language.
Yes, absolutely. This is a bit our fault too, because like a few years ago, we were like even in the Rust website, it was written like that Rust is a system programming language. But I think
Yeah.
since we saw that it's used for everything now, it's just
Mhm.
yeah, it's a more generic. There is a more generic message, uh, like empowering
Absolutely.
everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I agree that like it's. I use it for everything myself, so I agree
Right. Right.
100% with
Right.
that. And
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
and yeah, like
Absolutely.
if you like even by the talks of RustShip, you see that is used uh, in all spaces, in all domains, and yeah,
Exactly.
probably we will
Exactly.
the
That
message
was a big
will stay.
mandate.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that was a big mandate that we had as a team to ensure that the talks were representative of that. So we, I purposely sought out certain individuals to invite for talks, as well as when looking through the CFP, we really focused on making sure that it hit that goal to showcase the wide spectrum of what you can do with the language, and to showcase the repertoire and the different and the diversity of what's being built with the language. So I was so glad and so grateful when certain people submitted talks, like Ben from Leptos, but then also Jonathan from Ferris Systems, because those are two different ends of the spectrum, but they showcase the diversity of what you can do with the language. You've got a front end web framework, and then you've got safety critical systems and a tool chain built for creating, built for train systems and cars. So I think that and everything else in between is what we really want to showcase through Rust Nation. The diversity of what you can build and the repertoire that Rust has as a general purpose language.
Yeah, and yeah, it shows in the talks. Yes, I just went to the Rust website. Now the slogan is a language empowering everyone to build reliable and
Yes,
efficient software. So yeah,
yes, yes. Yeah, the
nice.
tagline was changed. The tagline was changed, I think, a couple of years ago, which was
Yes,
great.
yeah,
And which
exactly.
was a really important step. I think we need to go further in advertising that and really showcasing that in an important way so that people don't. I mean, sometimes it's unavoidable because, for example, Rust is always pitted against other systems programming language when you talk about performance and safety. So that always kind of brings the conversation back into the systems programming realm. But the benefits and the USP of Rust actually is in every area and every domain that it's used in, because the type safety, the compiler, it works for everything that you build, not just in one specific domain. So We have to stop being compared to like C++ and stuff, and actually just focus on the fact that we're a general purpose language.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Yes. Cool. And so let's say that I I don't know. I'm new to Rust, and maybe I want to start showing what I've done, right? And I want to show this at a conference or at the meetup. What are your tips on sending good proposals to a conference?
So I think the first step would be to know the conference that you're sending it to. And what I mean by that is, before, just sending off something to a CFP, take a look at the website, take a look at their previous conferences and the talks that they've uploaded to YouTube, and understand the agenda that they may have. What's the focus? It's a little bit difficult with Rust because there haven't been many Rust conferences compared to other programming languages. And the de facto conference was RustConf, which was meant to encompass and be just everything for everyone. But now we're in a position where there are many more Rust conferences and many more that are being planned and that are emerging. But I would say this for any conference and any programming language: you start by looking at the conference itself and looking at what their focus may be. I like to make it simple for people to, and I express our agenda very openly, and I express our focus very openly. That's what we're about. So you should know what to expect from us when we evaluate talks. The second thing that I would say is, regardless of the conference, which may contradict what I've just said, but I do feel like regardless of the conference, everybody loves a story. Everybody loves to hear your personal journey. I understand that it's great to talk about a feature of the language that you may be enamored with, but if you can add an element of storytelling into your proposal, and if you can add a bit of a hero's journey into your proposal, it will be a lot more compelling than, necessarily just going straight into the technical details. I understand that CFPs can be mechanical, and there can be a tendency to treat them like, you're submitting to a scientific conference or something like that. But with developer conferences, there is a human element there where you want to also ensure that there is a compelling reason for your talk to be chosen. You can have talks around the type system and, ownership and borrowing and, macros and all of the deeper nuances around language features that are still compelling if there are elements of, humanity baked into them, and I truly believe that. So I would say always look to tell a compelling story through even something that you're trying to teach. And also try to ensure that you have a focus on not being too mechanical if you are focused on a language feature type of talk. Storytelling and understanding the art of storytelling will definitely help you get more accepted talk proposals. That's one thing that I can definitely say as a top tip. Study and understand how to tell stories, and you'll be in a much better position to endear people towards your talk.
That's a great tip. Yes, I think, like as a person who goes at conference, I think learning something is great, but you also want to be entertained, and yeah, nothing better than like hearing your journey towards your goal. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a great tip.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I'm curious to hear what are the biggest challenges when it comes to organizing Rust Nation? Maybe
Or,
last year and also this year.
well, how long do we have? We're going to
How?
be here. My goodness. Conferences are incredibly multifaceted and unwieldy endeavors. It's taking up a lot of my time and my life. It's eaten into a lot of my developer time, time that I use to learn the language and grow in the language. But it's also allowed me to learn things as well. The first and the most important challenge is the finance. It comes down to the uh, balance between making your conference as accessible as possible in the landscape that we're in, and dealing with the real hard facts on the ground, inflation, being in a city that's incredibly expensive and how that carries over to venue, focusing on your own time expenditure on this, as well as taking care of the costs that come with putting on such a huge endeavor. Our travel budget tripled this year, just because of the carryover of inflation from last year into this year. We had a 15% increase in the venue price because of inflation. We have so many elements that have really been challenging this year in particular, as well as the general kind of negative sentiment through all the layoffs and in the tech industry in general that have also been incredibly challenging. We're really grateful to all of the supporters that we've been able to connect with this year, who are going to be exhibitors at Rust Nation, who provided sponsorship to even make this happen. But that's been the biggest challenge this year. Is a lot of companies are just completely cutting out their event budgets, and they're really kind of scaling back. There's a real sense of fear and trepidation through the tech industry in general, and that's kind of carried over into conferences as well. And then that also helps you realize that, like, okay, people are really interested in Rust, but there's still levels and there's still a few places we need to be before people get to a place where they're like happy piling money into the language and the ecosystem.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, it must be tough for this year. Yes,
Very, 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 very tough. Yeah.
but yeah, I thank you from all the community to making it happen. Yes. uh, Great. So I don't know. Like I was about to ask advices on people who want to start a conference, but maybe.
Don't do it. Don't do it. For your own
Okay.
sanity. Oh.
But okay. Yeah.
No, I mean, it is a great endeavor if you're able to pull it off. I would say, again, have a understanding of your own agenda. Don't just do it because you think it's cool or you think that, hey, it would be a nice thing to do. There has to be more of a reason than that. Who do you serve? Which part of the ecosystem do you serve? And what is your particular agenda? Again, we're very explicit with our agenda that we have an enterprise tilt and leaning, so we know what we're in for. We know where our focus is and we know who we serve through the ecosystem. So know your purpose. Ask the hard questions about who do we serve through this conference, which part of the ecosystem do we serve, and then make sure you partner with an events company. You cannot do this on your own, just as uh, a glorified meetup or a few people who feel like they have the will or have expressed some interest in the language. You have to partner with people who have experience in putting on large conferences like this. I was very, 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 very blessed to be partnered with a events team who approached me because of the consistency that we've had with Rust London and because of the size of Rust London. The events team approached me and they were like, hey, dude, you're the Rust London guy. It feels like London is primed and ready for a big conference that has an enterprise tilt for Rust. Let's do it. We'll take care of the logistics. We'll take it, as in them being the events company, they'll take care of the logistics and the nuts and bolts and all the rest of it. And, that just left me with the curation and the developer experience. So you have to partner with an events company and know that you're both in it together with a specific agenda and with a specific mandate for who you serve. So those are the things I would definitely say would be important to focus on.
Great. Yeah, I think it's useful for like to say that part of things so that maybe the listeners who are saying, yeah, but I still want to do it.
Of
Yeah,
course.
now you can do it because you know all the disadvantages and the hard
Yeah.
parts. Hi everyone, we are back after some technical issues. We had to interrupt the live streaming, and so I'm with Ernest now, recording it 2 days later. So we finished talking about Rust Nation, but like we really wanted to continue this episode because we also wanted to discuss about Rust London. So Ernest, if you don't mind, tell us what Rust London is.
Yes. So Rust London is the community for people who are interested in the Rust programming language based in London. I say that technically with a little asterisk because we're open to everyone everywhere, but we do meet geographically in London. So it is the Rust community chapter for London Rust stations. We were one of the first Rust community chapters to exist. There's always this weird competition between Rust London and Rust Oregon because Mozilla had offices in London, but Mozilla was founded in Oregon, if I'm to be correct. And there's always this kind of like, hey, who came first, Rust Oregon or Rust London? And because Rust London started out of the Mozilla offices. So it's one of the, I mean, we say we're the first, but Rust Oregon also say they're the first. And then it's like, well, okay, and it's friendly and it's fun, but it's great that we've been one of the longest standing Rust community chapters since the language's inception.
Nice. And yeah, what kind of activities do you do in Rust London?
So we have a structure as a meetup group to focus on engaging the community in a peer-based learning focus. I am a big believer in peer-based learning. I'm a big believer in communities being built through peer-based learning. And that's what we try to foster at Rust London. So we have 3 kinds of community events. We have the London Talks, which is a conventional meetup. It's a meetup that you're used to where someone stands in front of the audience and gives a presentation. Maybe it's a company, maybe it is an individual who wants to share a project they're working on, or someone wants to teach a concept. So that's the London Talks. Then we also have the Rust London Code Dojo. The Code Dojo is an evening of directed learning. So you can think of it as a university lecture, like a university lecture, where someone teaches you for an evening. We go from zero to hello world and beyond in an evening of directed learning. So you bring your laptop and someone walks you through uh, an evening of learning with the community. Then we have the Hack and Learn, which is a hangout. The Hack and Learn is designed to be a environment and an event that fosters peer-based learning. So we just have a room with a minimal agenda. The room will be split up, and there'll be tables set around, and each table will have its own uh, focus, and people can just self-organize around a table that makes sense for them. So we'll have a table for rustlings. We'll have a table for people who just want to read the Rust book. We'll have tables for people who have their own personal projects and they just want someone to look over their shoulder and uh, give them some advice and tips to collaborate with. There'll be tables where people just want to chat about things in the language. There's pizzas and there's drinks. And again, it's about fostering learning and growth in a peer-based environment. So those are our three community events, which we focus on at Rust London. And that is what we try to cycle through every month. So you get something different every month.
Wow, that makes me very jealous that I don't live in London.
Oh man, you're always welcome. You're always welcome, Marco.
Are these three kinds of event also open to online participants?
Yes, we try to, based on the venue that we partner with, we always want to make it open and we always want to try and include our London diaspora. I call it Rust London diaspora. This was something that was a very important thing during the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit everyone, essentially, we had to pivot very fast to become an online community. And I learned a lot of lessons through the pandemic that people still need a place to go. People still want a community to connect with. So we used Zoom and we became an online community very quickly. We were the most active London community through the pandemic. And that actually allowed us to open up our scope and actually open up our community base to a global audience because it's just a Zoom link, right? So we had people from Nigeria, from New Zealand, from America, from continental Europe signing in and becoming a part of the Rust London community because at the time that was the only community that was really active. So we want to keep that community. We don't want to just abandon people who we have made a connection with abroad. It's difficult with venues because not every venue is set up with remote access, but we will be getting back into hybrid meetups where we will have a dedicated section for people who want to dial in wherever they are in the world, who want to be honorary London Rustaceans. They can come in and they can be a part of the community and be a part of the community events as well. So absolutely, yes, we do try to facilitate hybrid meetups as much as we can.
Okay, and yeah, what are some tips that you will give for like online doing these hybrid things? Like, do you have,
Yeah.
for example, moderators that only cover
Yes.
the online part? Okay.
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes. Yeah. That's a very important part of our structure. We do have we have the Rust Code of Conduct, and we have online moderators who help facilitate conversation in the online rooms and also help with let's say it's a hack and learn. You can set up breakup rooms in Google Meet and Google and Zoom as well. So the format translates from in person to hybrid or to virtual. you can replicate the feeling to an extent. I will be very like transparent on the fact that nothing really matches in person as an experience, but there are elements that you can replicate via
Yeah,
virtual tools that will allow you to have a semblance of what it's like online. So using breakout rooms, for example, for different uh things that people want to do, making sure that you have moderators who can go through each room and ensure that everybody's okay and everything's being run smoothly. It's a very important part of what we want to foster as well. So yes, we do have a moderating team. It's very difficult because a lot of things fall down on me as the community lead, but I do have people who help from time to time with that as well.
I see. Yeah, that's great to hear for me for our listeners that don't live in London. And yeah, what do you think that makes like being in a local community very special with respect to like an online meetup?
Yeah, I believe that local community and having a constituency in your locale is one of the grassroots foundational components of building a strong, vibrant ecosystem. Zulip is great. Discord is great. Twitter, X, is great. All of those platforms are really important for the wider, bigger picture. Absolutely. But having in person, having community based, locale based communities where you can learn in a peer based environment, whether it's just a study group or it's a larger community, that is where the real magic happens, in my opinion. That's where you're able to really connect with people on a human level. Like I said, it's very important that the human component of everything that we do with technology is taken as seriously as the foundational parts of it. So meeting up with people and learning from your peers is something that cannot, I feel, be replicated virtually. And I believe it's one of the most important parts of how a community and an ecosystem grows, because you're with the person, you are learning, you're on a journey together, you're going through the process together, you're getting direct feedback from that individual, and you're able to exchange ideas, exchange uh learnings and difficulties and trials in a way where it builds a connection that always leads on to more amazing things. You hear about all of the stories about how startups, they started in a bar with a napkin, and the ideas being drawn up on there. All of that happens in person because of a human connection in person. So I'm a very, very big advocate of that. I believe that community chapters are how communities really grow and connect and flourish.
Yeah, uh, I agree, and that's why I also like conferences because like it's
Absolutely. Yes.
even if you're not in a big city, you go there and you can meet all these awesome people. Yes.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited for this year in particular. I'm really excited as to how conferences are being used by the project, the Rust project. And I'm really excited how it is allowing people to, come from behind the avatar and actually meet the person. It's like, oh, you approved my PR and I've
Yeah.
never actually met you in person before. It's so amazing to actually meet you. This is great. We saw that at Eurorust. We saw that at the first Rust Station. I'm very excited that there are so many people coming and utilizing Rust Nation as a meeting point. So some of the governance teams, the project teams, different domain focused project teams are all coming and utilizing Rust Nation as this focal point. Like, hey, let's meet up at Rust Nation. We can actually get some stuff done in person, right? Because we're actually there, and that's a really, really important part. And I know many other conferences that are going to be coming up this year are going to utilize the same thing and give the same benefit. You have Rust NL coming up. You have, of course, RustConf is back, which we're very, very excited about. I'm also helping with RustConf as well. And we're really excited about what that means for the entire Rust ecosystem as a reset. And all of the unconfs that these different conferences are going to have, it's only going to help people reconnect and actually get things done in person, and also get a great exchange of ideas, a sense of growth, and we can actually push things forward. So again, I'm very excited for this year. All of the different conferences. We have Rust Zurich, of course, Eurorust is back again as well. We're really excited about all of the different conferences that are going to be happening in 2024. Rust conferences that are going to be happening in 2024, and the opportunity that gives people to connect in person.
Yeah, I will also mention RustLab since I'm
Of
Italian, so
course,
I'm
yes,
very
yes,
proud
yes.
of it.
Of course, RustLab has been one of the longest standing Rust conferences as well. I think the Italian Rust scene is one of the sleeping giants in the ecosystem. I've just always come across so many amazing Italian Rust devs who have been very impactful for my own personal learning as well. I just want to give a couple of people a shout out. Luciano Mamino, he's an incredible developer who has been great in terms of just helping me learn the language. And yourself, of course, I've seen you and I've watched you on Twitter throughout the years. It's been great following you
Thank
online,
you.
which is this is why this is such a great full circle podcast for me. Of course, there's the rock star, the author of Zero to Production in Rust, and so many other really, really talented and very friendly Rust developers from Italy who have made incredible contributions to the ecosystem. And Rust Lab as a conference is a great example of the culmination of that, the grouping of all of people like that. And of course, Florence, how beautiful is Florence as a city, being able to go to Florence. So I have to get myself down to a Rust Lab one day. I know I have been in contact with the organizers. So yes, this year, again, Rust Lab's going to be a great, great conference as well.
Great to hear that. Thank you. And yeah, I wanted to go back to what you said. Uh, I think I'm noticing that in conference, I see more and more spaces where people can work together,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hacking spaces, stuff like that, and I really
Yes.
enjoy that. Yes, and like I wanted to ask you, like we all want to see Rust succeed. We want to see the adoption to increase. What
Yes.
do you think is the role of Rust communities in this mission? Like, how can we help with this?
So Rust community chapters, the meetups, they are the foundation on which I believe adoption and success is built on. So you have one component, which is the peer-based learning, where individuals who are discovering the language empower themselves, learning in a peer-based environment, and just growing as someone who's learning the language as a Rustacean. Then that becomes that then leads into the other component, which is in person is where enterprise discovers the language and discovers the community as well. I think the best way to uh, describe this benefit of adoption is, again, I'm going to paraphrase Lucas' story at TrueLayer, but I think it's also poignant because it's part of Russ London's story as well. So Luca, him being, the person who was really a big advocate for Rust internally at TrueLayer, he wanted to show and prove and convince TrueLayer, who were a C# shop at the time, that this language is it. This is actually happening. And pushback that you'll normally get as a singular, zealous advocate of the language is, well, there's nobody to hire, there's no community, there's nobody to train, there's no resources. You'll get all of the pushback because it's hard to adopt a new language. As cool as it is, and as great as it's seen to be on the bigger platforms online, you want to know that there are real people actually doing this. You want to know that there's actually stuff happening in your locale that makes sense. It's great that there are hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people on Twitter and Discord all learning the language, and that's great. But what does that mean for a company in Zurich or a company in a specific locale like Rome or Lagos or in Hong Kong? Any locale there has to be an understanding that there is a ground base of individuals that you can connect with to see it viscerally. And that's what Russ London served for TrueLayer. When Luca approached me and he was like, dude, we'll host Russ London. I want to help out. He became a part of the organizing team. The venue, we'll take care of it. The pizzas, the drinks, we'll take care of it. We've got a great auditorium. Everything's set up. Let's just show, just bring the people. And the underlying plan that Luca had behind that was to show the CTO, the managers, that, hey, look, we've just had a meetup of Rust developers who've come into our office, 100 plus. At the time, we were getting, this was in 2019, we would average around 120, between 90 and 120 people per meetup, which was a large number of people. When we were hosting at Cloudflare, it was the same thing. We would end up with 150 upwards. So that was a great testament to the fact that, whoa, there's actually people interested in this. There's actually people building in this. And there is a recruitment base for us. So a lot of the local communities serve as a proving ground for companies to adopt the language. And as we consistently hosted at TrueLayer, they were like, okay, well, you know what? Let's pick a few of these folks up. Let's build out a Rust team from that. And now they've got one of the largest Rust teams that they in the city of London. So the key thing with in-person community chapters is they serve as a proving ground and they serve as a validation for the language to companies in the specific locale, which is why it's great that people want to come to Rust London. But if you want Rust adopted in your city, if you want to see the Rust jobs in your locale and even beyond, begin with starting a community in your locale. Because it's great that Rust London, we grow really large, but London is already a big tech hub. It's one of the largest tech hubs in Europe, but we want to see that grow and we want to see that expand in loads of other areas. I want to give a shout out to Rust Torino. I think Rust Torino have restarted their meetups, and it's great to see that happening again. It's great to see that post-pandemic people are, restarting and trying to reignite community activities in their locale. And I think that is where we're gonna really see adoption, is through community chapters, local community chapters growing in their locales. I hope
Yeah.
that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense because, like, of course, you can look at numbers online. I don't know, number of pull requests so in
Mhm,
Rust,
mhm,
on
mhm.
GitHub, and so on. But like when you go to a meetup or a conference and you see, I don't know, 300 people in one room,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
different. Yes.
100%. Yes.
And so, yeah, you let's say that somebody's listening and is hyped about this and wants to start a local community, maybe in their town or something like
Yes.
that. What are some tips that you will give to them?
Okay, so this is actually part of what I am helping the foundation with. So I have a formal role in helping empower individuals who want to start local Rust communities, especially in areas outside of Europe and America, because we want to see Rust as a global language really represented as a global language. So the first step that I always state to anybody is start small and focus on peer-based learning. So I believe, from my experience doing this, this is the 4th year I've been doing this. I became I became the Rust London community lead in 2019, and what I've learned and what I've seen through that journey is starting through a hack and learn is the best way to begin that journey. Start with a study group where you're just focused on learning the language and consistently build from there. So when you have a hack and learn, you don't have to worry about necessarily even a venue, because you can do this in a coffee shop. I want to say again, another mentioned Rust Turkey, who have been doing similar things. They've been doing casual hack and learns and talks in coffee shops in Istanbul, which is amazing. And it's a great way for them to start building out their community base. And once you're able to build some consistency and you begin to build a core base of individuals who have come more and more, you'll start to see that you're ready to take the next step and move to the next level. But I would always say start with a study group, start with a hack and learn. Don't worry about doing talks. Don't worry about all the other bigger elements yet, because this becomes a job in and of itself. So if if you work full time and everything else, this is as big of a commitment as that. It is as time consuming as that. And what I have focused on is momentum through consistency. Once you're able to build some momentum by being consistent, you'll see that so many adjacent possibilities start to open up to you, because someone will turn up and be like, hey, Mike, I'm trying to convince my manager that we should use Rust. Maybe we can host you. Those things tend to happen through consistency and through the momentum of consistency. And as you do that, you'll see that a lot of opportunities unveil themselves in front of you. So start small, start with a study group, focused on peer-based learning. If you ever need any kind of resources, reach out to me via Twitter or via email. I'll share those details later. And focus on momentum through consistency.
I love what you said. Yes, because you like when you say, okay, I want to start this, but I need to find people who give talks. I need to find the venue,
Yeah.
and then instead you're saying you remove all the friction. Don't
Yes.
host talks at the beginning. Organize this in a coffee shop, and so like
Yes.
then there are no more excuses. I love it, but still, you said it's a big time commitment, of course. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the-
Which is why you have to make the cadence work for you. If you know that you can only do this once a quarter, then do it once a quarter. If you know that you can do this once a month, then do it once a month. Because the one of the things that will be very confusing, and it's one of the worst things really, is infrequent meetups, because people don't know whether this is a thing or not. So if you don't have a consistent cadence of people knowing, okay, I can expect this once a quarter, that's fine. And people will live with it and people will become used to it. Or people will be like, I can expect this once a month at this time of the month, right? That's fine. People can live with it. It's worse if you say, oh yes, I'm really enthusiastic, and you start once a week, and then it's like, oh, I can't actually keep this up because of life and so many other things that come your way. That confuses people and that fragments the community. So before even beginning to start anything to do with a community, first you need to ask yourself, what's in it for me? What am I doing this for? Because you're not going to receive any payment from this. Sponsorships only come later when you've actually shown that you can actually run a community consistently. So a lot of things come off your own back, especially at the beginning. So you need to really have the conversation with yourself. What are you doing this for? Like, what's in it for me? My agenda was wanting to be around people that I could learn from. You know, coming from a language like C++ and discovering Rust, it was a big mind trip for me, you know, some of the concepts and everything else. So being able to be in a community that large where there were so many more experienced people than me, I wanted to keep that going. And it made sense for me because I felt like this was going to be the language to bank on. So the fact that everybody around me at the time was using Nightly, and you know, there were so many cool people from different teams on the compiler team and everything else. When, you know, Mark had to leave London, I didn't want the community to just die and dissipate. I wanted to ensure that I could still be around people that I could learn from. So that was what was in it for me. And it's the same for other people. They need to know what's in it for them, because it's great to be altruistic about it, but in the long run, resentment will build if you don't really know what you're in it for, because it is a very, very taxing endeavor.
Definitely great advices, I think. Hopefully, like some people will be motivated by this. For
Oh
definitely, it
yes.
was
No,
inspiring,
no, no,
and
no,
so
absolutely.
maybe we will see a new Rust community flourish. Who
No,
knows?
absolutely. In the past, you know, even just the past, let's say 18 months, we've seen so many new communities come about. Rust Ukraine, want to give them a special shout out. And so many other communities that are flourishing. Rust India. And again, that's another one that has been very dear to my focus because of just what that ecosystem means. The Rust Indian community is, again, potentially one of the biggest, and they have sub-community chapters for each city and each region, and even regions. Because I mean, you talk about India, that's an incredibly massive landmass and populace of developers who are interested in the language. So Rust Mumbai, Rust Hyderabad, Rust Delhi, Rust Chennai, Rust Chandrai, like so many sub communities from that make up the larger Rust India community. It's great to see them emerging, and it's great to see how they are starting to really become an important force in the Rust ecosystem. You know, one of the lead maintainers for Clap, the Crate Clap, is from India. And I think a lot of their contributions need to be acknowledged, as well as the popular people that we all know and see as well. So it's also great to see the Rust community growing on the African continent as well, which is very dear to my heart. We're seeing Rust Kenya, and we're also seeing Rust Nigeria growing as well. And it's a very, very exciting time globally in the Rust ecosystem. There's a lot to be very positive about, and there's a lot to be very, very excited about in terms of the global adoption of an interest in the Rust programming language.
Absolutely. And thank you also for facilitating that this work. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not easy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Cool. So, do you have like any plans for the future, or anything else that you want to share with the listeners?
Well, you know, I just want to get past Rust Nation for now. That's the main focus. I'm really excited to see everybody there, all of the things that we've got planned. We've got so much that we want to give to the community as an experience. So we're really hoping to see everybody there. It's, I think, one of the most important networking opportunities for individuals who are interested in Rust, just because everybody's going to be there. And a lot of people who are even at the highest echelons of the language ecosystem are accessible, you know, to meet in person. So it's going to be a great, great opportunity. For me personally, in the future, I've got a million personal projects that I've started in Rust that I haven't been able to really finish yet. But that's a big focus for myself personally, is get some personal projects actually done this year, and look to contributing as well. I'm really excited that Rust is going to be part of Google Summer of Code. That was announced through the foundation as well. So that's going to be really exciting. And I think that's going to be really important for one of the biggest issues that we face as an ecosystem, is maintainer fatigue, maintainer burnout. And that is something that we're all working really hard on. We need mentorship programs, and we need new blood, new maintainer on ramps that don't put too much of a burden on existing maintainers, so that we can really flourish and keep the open source heart of the language. So Rust being a part of Google Summer of Code, I think is going to be a great thing. Encouraging people to mentor others. I mean, I one of the most important catalysts for my own development in the language was the Awesome Rust Mentors program, when I was able to utilize it. So mentorship, I think, is a really important thing. I would love to see more mentors in the Rust ecosystem. And yeah, that's something that I'm going to also put a lot of effort into, in terms of helping others mentor others to grow in the language. And RustConf as well. Really excited about RustConf coming back this year and helping out with RustConf as well. So we'll be looking at crafting some really good conference experience there as well. And we're really excited for how that's been reset and how we're like moving forward into a new era of RustConf and, you know, just the Rust language in general as well. You know, things are becoming a bit more mature. Everybody's growing up a bit. So it's really great to be a part of that.
Great. Great to hear that. Yes. Cool. So, how can people find you online? Maybe if they want tips on how to start a
Yes.
community.
So actually the best way is to DM me at Rust London _ on Twitter, X. My foundation email is my name, Ernest Kissiedu at rustfoundation.org. So it's ERNESTKISSIEDU at rustfoundation.org. You can also email through the Rust Nation at info@rustnation. And if you cite me, I'll find that there as well. But also, if you DM me on Twitter, I usually see that right away. So Rust at Rust London _ and you can just DM me from there as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So if you arrived here, you probably liked the episode. So if you want to see more episodes or maybe join our live streams, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Marco Ieni, and subscribe to the RustShip podcast on your favorite podcast client. Yeah, also like you can follow me on socials, but also Ernest. There are like Rust Nation and Rust London social accounts on Mastodon, LinkedIn, and Twitter, right?
Rust London isn't on Mastodon yet.
Okay.
I just haven't gotten around to doing it. But we are on Twitter and meetup.org as well.
Yeah, if you subscribe to Meetup, you will be notified about new events and so on.
Yes, the Rust London user group on meetup.org.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much, Ernest. I really enjoyed it. I think it was really inspiring for people who want to start a community or maybe join an existing one. You really stressed the concept of peer-based learning, and I'm an absolute believer in it as well. So yeah, thank you for being here, and see you at Rust Nation.
Amazing. Looking forward to your talk at Rust Nation. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thanks, everyone, and see you at the next episode. Bye.
Bye.